All right. So we are here. Let me try to get people to join. Who wants to join the stream? Let's see. All right. Trying to message people online. Line, come on. If you want to join the stream, let me see. You can, ouch. You can click the link, type the link in. And you can join, and I will add you in. It's in, you guys should be able to see it on, can you guys see it in the comment section? Yeah, the Mr. Jiang, that's a little scary. I don't know. I'm a little scared about him coming on. Holy shit. The troll master here. Probably come on, it'll be a picture of his penis or something. Who knows? That's the problem, on the internet. You get these people. You never know. Okay, Mr. Jiang. I see you in the studio. Just give me a thumbs up, if you would, please. So I know you're a real person, not some never-ending. Okay, looks like a real person, I'm going to say here. I'm going to add him to the stream.
Hello there.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm good. I finally get a chance to meet the one and only Prime in China.
Dude, it's funny because you have such a trollish account name, but you comment all the time, dude. You're dedicated, It's appreciated. It really is. I think people all the time think we're just being nice by saying things, but it's nice to see people comment all the time. So
yeah, I got the account used to watch this YouTuber called Rubinsky. And this guy, he goes to every country in the world, and he always says nice things. So he's being TR Congo, he gets scammed every day, and he's like, I love TR Congo. And there's an account on this called Congo.
So is his stream a little laggy for anyone, or is it just me? Because sometimes StreamYard is a little laggy. I don't know if he sounds laggy or if it's just me. Oh, maybe it's okay now. Yeah, it's okay now.
All right. Yeah.
I'm gonna add in Mr. Hazza here.
All right.
You're live, Mr. Hazza, by the way. Mr. Hazza. How am I supposed to say your name, by the way?
Well, I mean, everyone says it differently, so I don't mind. But
okay.
I say Hazza.
Hazza, okay. Hazza. I'll try. I'll try. Yeah. And so Haley is backstage, but she said she doesn't want to show her face. How are you going to hide your face, Haley? How are you going to do that? Because I don't want to throw you out there and then you get all offended and scream and blame me. Okay. So I guess we'll talk to Mr. Hazza here, because he's kind of the opposite. Maybe he's kind of the opposite, or at least he'll be perceived, I guess, as the opposite of my channel, because so you're a real journalist, of course, in China. You're a real journalist. You're not walking around with your phone or a GoPro. You're a real journalist. So it's kind of just fun to have you on here, and you can share some experience. But I thought you didn't like America very much. You said that you didn't like America much, but you're wearing a San Francisco like Levi's.
Well, I mean, you know, if you, I don't agree with hating anything totally. You know, so for the United States, obviously, there's some amazing things that have come out of the United States. You know,
Yeah, of course.
cultural products. There's some amazing food that I love from the US, and I have like some amazing American friends here in Guangzhou. So just
Yeah.
because I don't particularly like the direction that the United States might be going in at the moment doesn't mean that I can't appreciate the good things about America at the same time.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, and
you know,
as
I feel like sometimes people, you know, they just decide, okay, I'm going to hate this country or I'm going to hate this thing, and then just totally ignore anything positive about it. So,
sure.
yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm wearing San Francisco Levi's, California.
Yeah, as a disclaimer, like Hazza and I were talking about, like countries that perhaps you wouldn't go to again, and he said America, and he was kind of like he didn't want to say it because I'm American, but I was just putting him on the spot for fun. I was putting him on the spot for fun. It's not personal, it's just for jokes. Like I talked to him in private, so hopefully it's okay to put you on the spot there. So
well, I'm sure in the future one day I will go back to the United States again, but I mean, and especially now with COVID-19, I mean, talking about which countries we would travel to, it's kind of weird because we can't travel anywhere anyway. But there are a lot of countries that I would like to visit for the first time before I visit the United States for a second time.
Where do you want to go next? Where do you want to go next? Besides,
I've wanted to go to South America and Africa for a long time. You know, those are the two continents that I haven't been to yet. So I definitely want to go to South America. My one of my family members went to I can't even remember all of the countries she went to, but she went to like Mexico, Brazil, and she had a great time. And I just looked at the photos and I thought, yeah, I really want to go there and see it for myself. Obviously, not all of the experiences were positive because we had to scramble to help her out because she had her phone stolen somewhere. I can't remember in which country, but yeah, so we had to sort of scramble to help her out there so she could, get access to a phone and keep in touch with us, because obviously when family members are traveling around the world, it's second nature to worry about them and be concerned about them. And if there's a period where you can't be in touch with your family members, then
speaking of like theft, what do you think about like theft in China, like compared to other countries you've been to? Like a lot of people ask me like my favorite countries that I've ever been to, and one of them is Brazil. But like when I went to Brazil, and like Brazilian, like people from Brazil, they always get pissed at me, but I had so many like theft attempts when I went to Brazil. Like I love the country, but I'm like, stop trying to steal from me. Like there were so many attempts where I was just like, stop it, just leave me alone. Like, after they like try to take your wallet like 8 or 9 times, you're just like, what do you do with the damn thing, And I've had a couple attempts like in China where people like I had a guy one time in China was behind a bush and he had like a long pole and he was like trying to stick it in my pocket, and I'm like, what the hell,
Wow,
and it was in Guangzhou. Here's the thing, like I always stick up for Guangzhou. I'm like, Guangzhou. And it's happened to me a couple times in Guangzhou. Have you ever had anyone try to steal anything from you in China?
Touch wood. So I've been here for 10 years. I haven't lost or had my wallet stolen once. And probably I'll never get my wallet stolen again because we don't even need our wallets anymore.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that funny?
But my phone, people always get so frustrated with me because I just leave my phone on tables and walk away.
Oh, you're one of those.
And people say like, you can't do that. You've got to take your phone everywhere with you. It's going to get stolen. I think I've been very lucky over the last 10 years. Sometimes I'm a bit blasé and yeah, I don't stress too much about things like that. But yeah, I haven't had anything stolen from me. My dad visited Guangzhou once and he accidentally left his phone in a taxi. And I tried my best to get it back, but in the end, we weren't able to get it back. But the police were able to, provide us with a report that we could provide to the insurance company back in Australia. So he was able to replace it. But yeah, no, I've never had anything stolen from me. And I don't know if I've ever told you about the story about when I first moved to Guangzhou, because I'm actually from a pretty rural area in Australia. And just to let everybody know, we now have a security system and we now have keys. But for probably the first 20 years growing up in the part of Australia that I grew up, we did not lock our doors once. Even while we were in the United States for 1 month. We traveled to the United States and we left our house unlocked. And so, every day after school, when we were young, we'd go home and we'd just open the door. We'd leave the door open. Obviously, Mum would have something to say and say, "Oh, what do you think? You're living in a tent?"
Yeah, right.
But when I first came to Guangzhou, there were a couple of times that I left my front door open, and like when I went to bed. And one morning I woke up and one security guys working in the residential complex had been sitting outside my door all night watching it. And when I realized, I was like, why would you do that? Why would you sit out there all night? And he said, well, I didn't know if you were out or if you were home, or I didn't know if I shut the door, if you'd be locked out. And I was worried if you were inside sleeping that someone might come in and do something. And so, yeah, that was a really nice thing that happened. But no, like I guess I've been lucky because I haven't had anything stolen from me.
Oh, you're very lucky. So we'll say Haley now. Questions for Haley. You lived in China too. Did you have anyone ever try to steal anything from you? And you're in Australia also. So do you guys have that open door policy of not locking your doors and things, or can you explain?
Not really. Because I'm born and raised in Melbourne, so that's the second biggest city in Australia. So we'd be pretty stupid to not lock our doors. Yeah, we actually have a lot of home invasions recently. That's always in the news. But yeah, now I'm living. My mum moved out to a rural area of Victoria. But even there, people still lock their doors. Yeah.
Yeah, people lock their doors where I'm from now as well. I think growing up in the 90s, I think we were just in our own little bubble, and locking your door wasn't something that. I mean, even when we went away on holidays, we go. Do you know Noosa, Haley? Noosa on the Sunshine Coast. Yeah, we'd go to Noosa for about a month every year for Christmas holidays. And yeah, we just wouldn't lock our house while we were 3 hours drive away.
Really? The whole time you were gone?
Yeah, the whole time we were gone, yeah.
Holy crap. Yeah, like in my parents' hometown, like they don't really lock their doors either. But like in the city, like lock your door, like you lock your car. You don't leave your car running at the gas station. Like you don't do any of that. Like especially where I come from, like when I grew up in a really poor area, like you would come home and like all your shit would be gone. Like there's no way you could get away with that. But Like I've heard of people like in China that have had stuff stolen out of their apartments and stuff, but I think I was lucky that I've had people like tap my pockets before in public, like maybe they were trying to steal from me, but I never had anyone actually like get away with it. But I remember like Austin in China, I believe he had somebody break into his apartment and steal like MacBooks and stuff like that before, which it can happen in any country, right? Of course, you can have thievery and theft happens everywhere. But I think a lot of times, like I think I was surprised to hear about it happening in China, actually, but it happens everywhere, right? So
it does, and I guess it also depends on the area you live in, because like in China there are different kinds of communities. Obviously, Prime would know that there are some buildings which don't have security guards, where it's just a case of walking in and going up in the elevator and going straight to your front door. Whereas there are other communities, like the community I live in, you have to go through the front gate, and you have to register. Like all of the delivery people that bring things to my place, they always call me and complain because they have to leave their ID cards at the front gate. They have to, register their details, and then once they come in and then get to my specific building, then they have to call the security center through this machine to let them up to deliver stuff to my place. So I feel pretty safe where I am, and I think that perhaps I mean, sorry for talking too much. I'm talking way too. But I have this other story that I would like to share about what happened during the COVID-19 outbreak here in China, because this was probably in early March or late March. So at that time, all of the deliveries were just left downstairs. So nobody was allowed to bring deliveries up to your apartments. They had to leave them at the front gate, and then the security guards would move them to the respective buildings. So we have like building A, B, C, and D in our community. And so every day you have to go down and you have to check to see if you had any deliveries. And I had been waiting for a specific thing to be delivered for a while, and on my phone it said it had already been delivered, and it had already been accepted by me. Which
oh really?
hang on a minute, I haven't received my delivery, so what's going on? So I went to the security center in my community, and they actually sat down with me for about an hour and went through the security footage, because I knew what the package looked like, and I knew where they had placed it, because the delivery guy had sent me a photo of the package. So we went through the security footage for about an hour, and finally we found out that somebody had accidentally picked up my package, because the way they had written my apartment number on the package itself was a bit messy. So it was I'm not going to say which floor I live on, but just as an example, like if I lived on level 22 in apartment number 2, they were on level 28, apartment number 2. So it was just a mistake. It was an honest mistake that they picked up my parcel. But through that, we were able to identify, and then we were able to go into the security footage in the elevator and then find out whether the person had turned left or turned right. So we could narrow it down to, 2 apartments on that level that had accidentally picked up my package. And then so the security personnel went with me to that level, knocked on the doors, asked if they had accidentally picked up any packages, and finally I got my package back, because they looked at it and they realized, and they were like, oh yes, I'm so sorry, I accidentally took your package. So like security here in my complex is actually like top notch. Like they really do take very good care of us. So I feel pretty safe here. I think in China, when you decide where to live, it's just like anywhere else in the world. You've got to try to take security and safety into consideration, and not only care about the price of the apartment. You know, because you could save like 300 or 400 renminbi per month, but you know, if you're living in an apartment that's not that safe or not that securely sort of protected, then I'd rather spend the extra couple of 100 renminbi per month to live somewhere a little bit safer.
Awesome. So,
That
Mr.
actually,
Jung, real quick, can you explain kind of where you're from, where you live? Have you been to China and all that stuff? Give you a little bit here.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, I live like primarily in Sweden because I'm a student there.
Cool. And
basically, I'm from. The reason why my internet is a bit choppy right now is because I'm in an undisclosed third world shithole. But but basically, I'm a student. Live in Sweden. I've been in Sweden for 9 years. Sorry, since I was 9 years old, and I'm 24 now. Just to let you guys know. It's actually interesting, Hazza, the story you mentioned about that, because that reminded me of a new type of scam that's happening in China these days. I haven't been to the mainland, but I've been to Hong Kong, but I have a Chinese girlfriend. And she told me that there's this new, you guys know what Sheifeng is, right? The courier service.
Oh, Shunfeng, yep.
Yeah. So there's basically this kind of a scam where they look up the emails of companies or like different people, right? And addresses of them, and they send them like a bunch of like blank papers. And basically the Sheifeng people, they come to your doorstep, they ask you for 15 RMB, but the delivery fee for that, and there's some kind of a charge that you have to pay to get those papers because you think it's important, right? You pay that, and that money goes to the scammer, essentially. I'm not entirely sure all the intricacies of how it really works, but this is something that
I can give you some information about that, actually, if you'd like.
Oh, yeah?
So with Shunfeng, the delivery company, there's two forms of payment. So either the sender pays for the delivery or the receiver pays for the delivery. And also, there's also for e-commerce platforms, sometimes they have an option where you pay for what you've purchased upon delivery. But it's not very common because you know, people. I mean, I get some people can take advantage of that, and you know, it can be a mess sometimes. But you can actually say to the Shunfeng people that you would like to see what is inside the package before you pay the money. Like that is actually a rule with the Shunfeng. So, I mean, usually the delivery guys, they're in a rush because they've got their quotas. You know, they earn their money, they earn their salary based on how many packages they can deliver each day. So, you know, they want to get things going as quickly as possible. But it's actually a policy with Shunfeng that you can open the package and you can see what's inside before you pay anything. So, I mean, I guess for some people, I mean, I guess if you're at work, if you're in a hurry, and then you get this delivery, and it looks like documents, and it's 15 renminbi, and you won't think too much about it because you're just like, well, I'd rather save the time than, you know, go through the whole process of opening it up and checking it and everything like that. But probably it's not a Shunfeng scam. It's somebody who's taking advantage of the Shunfeng delivery company, and you pay on arrival thing. So they've probably already paid for the package to be delivered, because pay on arrival for certain documents. Usually, it's around 15 renminbi anyway. I actually had some documents delivered to my place yesterday, and it was pay on arrival, and it was 15 renminbi. So I don't know. I hope that gives you some insight into.
No, it does. It's just, yeah, it does. It actually, the whole pay on arrival thing, it gave it a bit more context. It's just kind of sad. My girlfriend fell for it 5 times.
5 times. Well, I mean, you can tell your girlfriend that, you know, if she gets a delivery and she has to pay for it on arrival, that she can inspect what's inside the package before paying any money. The only problem is if the delivery comes while you're not at home. And sometimes the delivery guy will call you and say, this is a pay on delivery package. So would you like me to come back, or would you like me to come back when you're at home, or would you like to add my WeChat and transfer the money to me and I'll just leave it at your door? And usually, I mean, because 99% of the time it's a legit delivery. So you'll add their WeChat, you'll send them the money, they'll send you a photo of the package sitting at your door, and then you'll delete each other on WeChat. Because it just, I mean, you know, I don't know when I'm going to be home, and I don't know when they're going to be working, and I just rather get it out of the way. But if you're at home and you receive a package that's pay on arrival, you literally, you can open it up in front of the delivery person and confirm that what's inside is what you want before you pay a single mao or a single cent.
Yeah. Also, excuse me, guys, if I'm smoking cigarettes here, but I am a CCP member, so I have to smoke 1,000 cigarettes a day.
1,000? That's quite a bit, actually. Actually, someone secretly commented on your cigarette smoking, and I was like, "Hey, I don't care. He can do whatever he wants. I don't care." But,
let me kill myself.
Yeah,
Do you have a preference for a brand?
Ooh, actually, I'm glad you asked, because I've tried a lot of Chinese cigarettes, and my favorite one is this one cigarette called Guyang. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, so excuse me for that. But it's basically a cigarette that has like one of these bubbles here. This is a Marlboro of Chinese.
Okay.
But the bubble has 30% baijiu in it. Super hard to find, even in China.
What? Really? Wow. Do you smoke, Hazza? Are you a smoker too?
Socially.
You're having a hard time there with that question.
Well, I mean, it's 2021. People don't look that positively at people who still smoke in 2021. But so I'm a social smoker. If I get together with friends for a beer, and you know, I know it's unhealthy. I get it. But yeah, I try to reduce it as much as possible.
You try to reduce it. Okay. No judgment. No judgment.
It's all good, man.
I just thought it was funny. He was like, he asked, like, it's like if I asked him if he was gay or something. He was like, what? I'm like, no, dude, it's okay. It's just smoking. It's just smoking.
I know. I just know that you know, sometimes people take things that you say and then they twist them and turn them, and suddenly, I don't know.
Yeah, like as if Hazza has like 12 cigarettes in his mouth and he's just like he's severely addicted. But that being said, like a lot of people in China do smoke, whereas I think in the Western world, like it is kind of looked negatively down upon now. Whereas if in China, like cigarettes are cheaper than in the Western world, right? So it's kind of like, from what I understand anyways, but I've heard a lot of Westerners say they suck.
Much cheaper. You know,
but I don't smoke.
For example, like a packet of Zhonghua cigarettes, which is considered like a high-end cigarette brand in China. it's actually in Australia. It's actually one of the cheaper cigarettes to buy.
What?
Just because of tax. So it's because of the high tax placed on cigarettes. So I've noticed that some of the brands in China, which are more expensive than a lot of other brands, are actually cheaper than a lot of other brands in Australia. And it's mainly because of the tax imposed on tobacco products in Australia to encourage people to either quit or cut down on the amount of cigarettes that they're smoking.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, funny that you mentioned Changhua. There's actually a funny thing about that. There's like a fake copy of Changhua made in Fujian, and according to some Chinese people that I know, the fake Fujian one tastes better than the original. Fun fact.
Awesome. So we got
I
Mitch.
can't comment on that. I don't have any to contribute to that.
So since we're doing this like random people, anyone can come on. Maybe we'll give Mitch here an opportunity to explain himself, where you're from, why you're coming on, and if you have questions or what you want to talk about, or the floor is yours, I guess.
Oh yeah, no. I was a Canadian. I spent 2 years in China. I'll be honest. Yeah, no. I always get uncomfortable when it comes to the speak Chinese conversation because I have learned several languages and I know the advantages of learning languages and speaking them in society. But yeah, I kind of got through my first year. Then that big thing about the Michaels came out, right? And that was really a watershed moment for me when you're in that country. And all of a sudden you realize, whoa, that could be you. You know, not that should be me or that will be me, but, you know, just it definitely put a crimp on my interest in exploring China. And then I branched out and found out what guys like Lao Wai and Serpent Sade were going through. And then as coincidence would have it, I was on vacation when the Wuhan virus broke out, and things with my work quickly went downhill because a lot of businesses were getting they just couldn't operate. So I ended up staying outside because just the way how it was all handled, it just kind of hurt my trust in the way in the way companies really even operate over there. I didn't have much faith in the company I was working for to begin with, so I decided to just stay out.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you get the attitude about foreigners, and then you see about how they're treating people in Guangdong. Then you know you see all that stuff, and you know, you just know that you got to take a year off at the very least, right?
Yeah, I mean, like me personally, some people, like I've noticed, will take like a China break. Maybe they'll go back home for a year or something, and then they'll come back to China. And for me, like I took China breaks. Like I would go to Thailand or I would go to other countries on vacation, and I started to realize that. At that time, like the breaks just weren't long enough, and I needed a little longer. And so for me, like, would people always ask all the time, like, would you go back to China? And I'm like, you know, there's certain circumstances politically that I don't like, but I still miss China for certain things, definitely, you know. So I guess that's a good question. Like Haley, you lived in China, you left China, you're back in Australia. Would you move back to China? And if so, why? And if not, why not?
Maybe I would, but if only I couldn't get a job here in Australia. And if I did, I wouldn't pick Xi'an anymore. I would go to somewhere like Shenzhen or Shanghai.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to question to Hazza, you've been in China for a very long time. Could you see yourself living in another country, or is China just the all and all for you, and you'll never live anywhere else except for maybe your home country?
I think that honestly, since I've invested so much of my time in learning Chinese and living in China, that if I were to live in another country, it would be Australia, because at this point in time, I don't think. Well, okay, it would be Australia or another English-speaking country, or a country that speaks or has a large population of Chinese speakers, because I think that I've spent so long, learning Chinese. I wouldn't want to go somewhere where I have to completely start all over again. For example, like if I move to, I don't know, Germany or a country in Europe where obviously they do speak English, but I like to be able to understand the locals, and also I like to be able to gain a better understanding of the culture through language. So if I were to live anywhere other than Guangzhou, it would probably be Australia, just because I don't want to start all over again from scratch. I'm 30 years old this year. So yeah, and being in Australia has its advantages as well. I can be close to my family, or closer to my family. If I lived in a different city in Australia, I could be closer to my family. There's also a large Chinese population in Australia as well. So I don't think moving back to Australia would mean, losing the ability to speak Chinese, because there are a lot of communities that you can reach out to in Australia. But yeah, that would be my answer. I think in terms of China, I don't have any plans to leave Guangzhou, because I really, really love this city, and I feel really at home in Guangzhou. And even if I went to somewhere like Shanghai or Beijing, it would be like almost like starting from scratch again as well, because you have to make new connections with people. You have to meet a whole new bunch of friends. You have to learn about a whole new city. And I'm kind of just I'm a man of habit. So that's probably why I'm stuck with Guangzhou for 10 years, and I honestly I enjoy my life in Guangzhou. So
Awesome. So I think Haley's raising her hand. So Haley,
Yeah, can I just go back to the previous cigarette topic for a second? Because I went out and I just wanted to show, these are not mine, Australian cigarettes. That's what they look like. Hazza would know.
Oh, that's serious.
Right? Yeah. So, and then on the back, yeah.
In America,
Right.
they say like don't smoke, but like that is some serious like anti-smoking. Like
Oh, they're worse than this. Like they've got photos of people with decomposed teeth and decomposed hearts and brains and things like that. And this campaign, they've been doing this for years now, and it seems to work. It doesn't work on my mum though. But as Hazza was saying, our cigarettes are like the most expensive in the world too. This is a packet of 25 cigarettes, and I think it's probably about $40.
$40. I think that's roughly. I mean, I think probably the cheapest pack of cigarettes that you can buy in Australia, just based on the last time I was in Australia, was about just under $40 for a pack of 20.
Yeah.
So it's extremely expensive, and also cigarette producers aren't allowed to have any branding at all on their.
Nah, that's their branding. That's the brand.
Yeah, the branding is the brand name. That's it.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, like here in America, depending on where you live, like cigarettes can be really expensive in like New York and stuff, because some states are way more health conscious about things like that than others. But I know they're expensive in like New York and places, but here, like I don't think they're too expensive. But I just don't smoke. I've never smoked. I tried them when I was young and I got sick, and I never enjoyed it. So maybe next we will start a next question in a second here when Haley gets back playing with her cigarettes. She says they're her mom's. She says they're her mom's, but they're hers.
I actually
No,
have a question for Mitch. I have a question for Mitch, if you don't
What's up?
mind.
Yeah.
You mentioned about the two Canadians. I was just interested to know, from your perspective, why that. I mean, in the larger scheme of things, based on the number of Canadians in China working in China, why the arrest of two Canadians was such an issue for you personally. I mean, because obviously, like, I work in the media, so I hear about when Australian people are arrested or get in trouble with the authorities in China, and that has not even once worried me because you know most of the time I know the reason for why they've been arrested, or usually it's something involved with drugs. I'm not, the Canadian case is totally different, but I'm just wondering why the arrest of two Canadians concerns you so much in the grander scheme of things, when you take into account how many Canadians are living and working in China.
Yeah, well, it was a bit of a crazy coincidence because I was going through a visa switch at the time, and I'm somebody I typically don't. I read the story and whoa, that's relevant. A bunch of Canadians just got grabbed. I haven't seen a decent alibi for why they would have gotten snatched up coming out of the other side. So, all of a sudden it leads to all these ideas of how am I leaving myself exposed legally within the confines of the law over there? Because, that's the bottom line, right? So I had to, and I was going through a period where switching up visas and things actually did get complicated and weird. So yeah, I just, it was pretty anxiety inducing because it just kind of seemed like, is this the beginning? Is this the end? Like, who are they targeting? Do you have to be somebody special, or will it just be, will it escalate to, it really blindsided me. And turns out this isn't the first time they've done it to Canadians, and they actually did it in retaliation to another individual we had arrested. And they eventually released the people a lot sooner because one of the people they detained was a woman, and apparently that's a bit harder to stomach or harder to justify. I don't know if you ever heard about it, but there was a couple. They owned a coffee shop up near the North Korean border. They got snatched up when they were staying in a hotel. It's just like I didn't want to stand out in any way, and it caused a fair bit of anxiety.
I'm not sure about the legalities with speaking about ongoing trials on this platform. So, I tend not to talk about specific incidents, especially when it's related to legal matters and arrests and the such. I was just more interested in, just as a Canadian, just why those arrests were such a crucial part of your decision to stay away from China at this period of time.
Well, it wasn't really an aspect that had gone on my radar. Really, it was the virus that really, that the virus was the final straw, but that was sort of the start of things, and I was getting over my honeymoon phase. So, yeah.
But I do think it's a legitimate question. If let's say perhaps that for those that don't know, the Michael and Michael thing is basically where these two people were taken into custody as the accusation, of course, is retaliation for the Huawei thing. And let's just suspect for
they accused them of espionage, but
right, and let's just say that is true and that is real. I would expect that Canadian people would sort of question, what is it safe for me here? Because I feel like isn't that to the same thing that happens in China? They always say, well, perhaps Chinese people, it's not safe for them to go to America or Canada or wherever. Right?
There was also the guy who got caught carrying drugs and sentenced to death for that. I could see if it was one of your own nationals. I could see if he had actually physically harmed, maimed, or killed a Chinese national. But
and I will say to China's credit, like I think if you're dumb enough to take drugs or to sell drugs in China, of course you should be very aware of the laws there. And for me, I don't defend that at all. I think if you're at the mercy of that country at that point. Same thing for Japan. When I lived in Japan, I knew people that got in trouble for that in Japan, and people thought that Japan was really strict. And I'm like, well, this is Japan. This is not America. It's not legalized here. But when you're talking about China in this sense, what happens when we realize that people are being disappeared and that people like Jack Ma or Fan Bingbing are disappearing for months on end? And these are potentially famous people. And then you find out that later on they had some kind of legal issues and that they were kind of disappeared without any explanation. Whereas if in America, when you kind of get just like when you go to jail, like they're going to contact people around you. People are going to know, like you don't just disappear, for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days and nobody know where you're at, It just doesn't happen.
Yeah. I have a little bit of a different perspective on this matter that maybe, I don't know, you guys might not agree with me, but I feel that high-profile people in China, when there is some kind of controversy surrounding them, that they tend to lay very low for quite a long period of time, because in China, especially as somebody who is a public figure, like an actress or a well-known business person, reputation is extremely important. And so during that time when there is controversy surrounding you as a person, if you are out there and if you are making statements and comments and being very visible during that time, that can be very detrimental to long-term development of your career and your business. So, I mean, for example, I think we can compare, for example, Hollywood stars. If there's a controversy with a Hollywood actress surrounding some legal issue or something like that, perhaps she might be on all of the morning talk shows, and it'll be the top story on the entertainment news. And I think that in the West, especially in the entertainment industry, like any attention is good attention, because that's just kind of how the culture is based. But here in China, I think that if there is an issue that arises with an individual, I think most people and the people that are advising them would advise them to lay low until the situation is sorted, because speculation and assumptions are really dangerous things, and I think we've seen that over and over again with a lot of different people. And once an assumption is put out there, once speculation is made, it's very hard to retract that. Once something's put out there in the world, it's very hard to take it back. So I think personally, if I ever was involved in something that was a little bit controversial, I definitely would just stay low until things were sorted and I could come out and say, you know what, this is how it is. Now you can make up your mind. I don't want people to be, you don't want people to be speculating about you and making assumptions that are incorrect, that will be there forever on the internet, as whenever you search for their name or look up their information on the internet. So, and I also think that in terms of business people in China, I think that the business community also knows that reputation is also extremely important, especially amongst Chinese consumers. So that's also a factor that people take into consideration. And I think some people in the West reporting on certain issues like this may not have taken that into consideration as a factor.
Well,
Okay.
I was just wondering, from the Chinese media side, I get what you're saying personally, and I totally agree with that way of going about that. Like, I would lay low, but you see in the U.S. news where accusations were leveled because this XYZ was discovered. Like, is there really and I believe Jack Ma was accused of stealing tens of billions of dollars. Was there a proper timeline? Jack Ma was accused. Jack Ma lies low. These accusations were proven to be false. Was there any transparency from the media's end in terms of showing that whole process? Because some people get off. Famous example, O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson got off, but it was still reported that he was accused of something, right? So, I mean, that then it comes out that they couldn't find him guilty in court or otherwise. I would almost look at it more of like a media thing, whether Jack Ma is guilty or not. I don't know.
Well, in regards to the Jack Ma story, I can tell you my experience. So I reported on the Jack Ma and the Ant financial situation when the story broke, and just presented the facts. That investigations were undergoing, and then that's it. Like, a lot of the time in Chinese news and media reporting, there's not much room for speculation. And I just think that the whole media landscape in China is completely different to in other countries, because most of the speculation and the conversations that you would usually see taking place on a table with a panel on network news channels in the United States takes place on social media, on Weibo, on platforms like that. Whereas, like, the media's role is to present the facts. So I've said this in another video that I've done with an Australian friend before, that being factual in China when presenting the news and presenting media is like one of the major priorities. And you have to make sure that what you are saying is factual, and that you can back it up with a source, or you can back it up with official statistics, or you just can't go out there and just report on rumors as news. You know what I mean? Like, you can report on rumors once the rumors have been cleared up, and then you can present the entire timeline of how the rumors started, and then the response from the authorities, and then how it was resolved, and you can present a news story like that. But you can't just make a story about a rumor. That's just
at the same time. What about the other spectrum? You say, well, people like to lay low, and that's what they prefer. Is it perhaps that people lay low because they know that being loud gives them more trouble? It seems like to me in China, anyone that says something that is not liked and then it becomes loud and becomes famous and becomes shared, those are the people that generally get in trouble. If you have an unpopular opinion, especially that disagrees with Big Brother, you put yourself at risk. And if you're really innocent, why do you have to be quiet? Why do you have to sit around and do nothing and be quiet? Shouldn't you be allowed to say or do whatever you want? Why be quiet? Why hide? Why should you? What's there to be afraid of, right? I mean, if you really have nothing to be afraid of and you're really innocent, then why would you hide? Why would you go into hiding for 3 months? Doesn't it seem like there's a realistic understanding between China and China's people that whenever something is negative or bad, that you should be quiet, that you should go into hiding? Like, I couldn't imagine, like, if I was a celebrity and every time someone said that, like, I went pee or caca, that like, I had to like go into hiding for 3 months. Like, what would you do? You'd have to just stay home all the time. I don't know what you would do,
Well, I mean, just I'm putting it into context. Fan Bingbing, Jack Ma, these are two very,
So
these
who are
individuals
they afraid of
get
though?
a lot of attention.
Who are they hiding
on
from?
social
I don't
media.
understand.
But at the same time, there are literally thousands and thousands of very successful celebrities in China, thousands and thousands of very successful business people in China that are running massive businesses that are doing very well for themselves in China. So I think, sometimes sometimes when it comes to China issues, I think there really needs to be some middle ground where people put things into perspective, because sometimes isolated incidents can gain a lot of attention and people can get the impression that that is the normal, that is the norm in China, whereas there are isolated incidents that just gain a lot of attention, and then it sends the wrong message. That's just a normal thing that occurs in China, when it's actually
I just don't
not.
I
understand.
mean, Jack Ma was an icon, and Jack
Who are
Ma
you
loved the
hiding from?
limelight. Not everybody in China loves the limelight like that, and there's plenty of celebrities in the U.S. I mean, I don't know how much Bezos loves the limelight, or if it's just his wealth that attracts it to him. But I mean, Jack Ma definitely loved the limelight, and he became an icon for successful entrepreneurship in China. So I mean, not everybody is gonna want to choose to do that and run like multi-billion-dollar businesses.
Well, who is he hiding from? I mean, he's Jack Ma, right? Like he's a multi-billionaire. So who is Jack Ma hiding from? Who's he scared of? Like who is so powerful that Jack Ma goes away for like 30 days or something, or however long? Like I don't understand who could make me disappear when I'm a billionaire. Just disappear off the face of the earth when you're that
Well,
famous,
Well, this is this is another very complex conversation, which probably I'm a little bit out of my depth with, but it just relates to the fact that the United States and China run on very different systems. And obviously, in the United States, a billionaire has sometimes a lot more power than a lot of politicians and people in government. I think that we can agree on that. Whereas in China, I think that, and a lot of people, probably a lot of people who in the West would be considered as being more on the left would appreciate the fact that being a billionaire doesn't make you, immune to the law or immune to a country's regulations.
Yeah,
If
but
you know what I'm
innocent until proven guilty. Why? I mean, if you haven't gone to court yet, why would you hide? You know what I mean? Like, did Jack Ma like go to court and get charged with anything, or did he just disappear before? Like same thing for Fan Bingbing. Like she was accused of something and she just kind of disappeared. She never really like did anything happen? Did she go to court? And then like we didn't know she went to court, or there's just accusations that came out and then like she apologized, and it's like shouldn't you get a chance to speak before they like disappear you for 90 days, or devil's advocate, what if you said something that perhaps wasn't preferred, and then they were like, well, Hazza, you're just gonna have to 30 days, you've got to go away. Would you be compliant and just do that, or do you think you would feel like like what is this shit, right? Or do you think you would just be compliant?
Well, I mean, once again, I'm a journalist based in Guangdong, and none of these stories happened here in Guangdong, and my main focus is on local news stories as well. I also do an international news program as well. So my focus is on Guangdong news and international news. So sometimes when people ask me questions about certain issues, I will just come out and say, look, honestly, I can't give you anything constructive. But all I can say is that when it comes to the whole the word disappear, I think that it's a little bit extreme, because I think when somebody disappears, it just means they're not publicly seen for a while. It doesn't mean they've disappeared. They're just laying low. I mean, some people choose to take themselves out of the spotlight, and you're not a journalist, Hazza. You're a teleprompter reader for the thank you very much for MB.
I just want to say that
obviously you do not understand how my role works or my job works, but that's fine.
To be fair, I want to give you for people that say this, I want to give you an opportunity to explain. From what you've told me, and if I'm wrong, stop me and correct me. But you do sometimes write your own content that is put on television, right? Or
Yes.
So you say, correct?
Yes. Yes.
So you're not just reading what is always fed to you, correct?
Yeah, people have this people have this misconception that I just rock up to work and I read a teleprompter and I go home, which is so false. And I just don't understand, why people. I think it's because I work in China. So I mean, I do write stories. I co-produce programs. I research. I do interviews. I work really hard, and reading a teleprompter is about 2% of my job. It's 2% of my job. And to the person who's saying that I just read a teleprompter, I would really encourage you to try and read a teleprompter and come across as being natural on camera, because reading a teleprompter is actually not that easy. It takes practice, it takes time, but that's only 2% of my role. And if people still want to think that about me, that's fine. It doesn't concern me at all. But that is false. So
I kind of want to add the other side of while I allow you to explain yourself, I do want to, use some of the criticisms that people may have in the comments and question. Have you ever said anything, and this is a question, have you ever said anything where later maybe the media or the people that you work for or work with have come to you and said, hey, that was incorrect, hey, that was wrong, and we need this fixed, and you spread misinformation? Or does it go through a filter first before what you say, or how does that work?
Once.
And
once.
Can you
when
share that,
when we're filming a Chinese, it was a Chinese program, and I said "Wa sai" a couple of times, and apparently that is considered at the time it was considered a curse word in certain regions of China. So they came to me and said, in the future, perhaps say "Wa sai" a little bit less. That's the only instance I can think of. I think one other instance was when I wrote an article and I didn't capitalize somebody's title, and somebody came back to me and said, next time you're writing an article, make sure that you follow, don't make grammatical mistakes or like that,
I-
so no, like nobody's ever come to me and said you can't say that, you can't do this. Never happened.
Next question from the comment, which is, I think this is going to be. Have you ever said anything that is critical of another government or another government member within China? Do you guys have those types of stories? Do you read those types of stories that are critical of one another, or does that never happen?
So, for example, the station that I work for, GRT, we have a program which is called the People's Hotline. And basically what happens is it's a live program and people call up and they criticize, they criticize a whole range of issues. It could be something as simple as like a blocked drain, or it could be a complaint about a local official. And it's a live program. So it's not a pre-recorded program. And I've taken part in that program before, and the idea that you can never criticize. Also, that question, in my opinion, has a problem, because it should be CPC, not CCP, because that's actually the accurate term to use, because that's how they refer to themselves as. But yes, Robert, so the last time I wrote or presented a story that criticizes the CCP, well, I mean, every single this is a very hard question to answer, because in China many aspects of life are related to the government and to, so basically,
essentially, maybe people
if you report something negative that's happening, indirectly you are criticizing the handling of situations. But I don't think that is. I just feel like a lot of people just don't understand how China works and the media's role in China. And after living here for 10 years, I know that there are ways that you can express issues that you have.
But you yourself, you would not be willing to stand up and be critical, or be allowed to be critical yourself, and you probably wouldn't do it yourself anyways, to be critical of them directly, right?
I think if I were to be critical, I would do it in the appropriate manner. But I think that the question actually is flawed in itself, because he is assuming that I want to criticize the CPC.
But are you critical of it? In China, is there anything that you think should be done better, and that you do feel critical of, and you do complain about, publicly, not just like between you and your friends? Have you ever posted on Weibo like, hey, they should do, China really has to do better with this or this? Have you done that before?
Yes. Feel free to go through my Weibo account and have a look at some of the things that I posted in the past.
And do you think that would be allowed to be done, like, for you as a journalist? Like, would they allow you to go on live television and be critical of certain things that perhaps an entity within the government, because the government in China is very large and wide.
Yes,
and
I've done that. I've been on live programs where I have expressed things that I find are, directly related to me personally, that I find could be improved.
Sure. What are some things that you think, and perhaps just because you're Australian, are there any things that you can think of that you wish China did better, that perhaps Australia does better? Or do you think that just your life in China is completely better, and you really have Australia is just outdone by China. What do you think there?
Things that I think China could do
Or
better.
things that China could do better that Australia perhaps is already doing really well, or what could China improve on that they could learn from Australia, and just to be fair, vice versa too.
Sorry, say that again.
So what is some things that you think China could learn from Australia that China should do better, and vice versa? What are some things that you think Australia should do better that they could learn from China?
So I think that China does a very good job of remaining very united. So Chinese people in general, they have this sense of collectiveness, like that the country's one huge family. Whereas in Australia, I've seen that in recent years we are a very divided nation, and I think that is. I think that's a huge challenge that we face as a country, because I think it's healthy in Australia to debate issues, but we've got to the point now where we are so divided as a country when it comes to politics that it's affecting families, it's affecting friendships. Whereas in China, I think that Chinese people in general are very good at disconnecting politics from friendships, from relationships, but I think in Australia, like, politics is something that can tear friendships and relationships apart. In terms of what China could learn from Australia, I think there are a lot of areas that we could probably learn from each other. I mean, for example, when I return to Australia, I find that the payment systems in Australia are very frustrating. I think that China has, invested a lot in infrastructure, which is very forward looking. I think that in Australia, politicians really they only look forward 4 years at most, because that's the term that they're given, and hopefully they will be re-elected for another 4 years after that. But in China, I think that China has these long-term plans, 5-year plans, and then long-term goals, including goals that go to through to 2035. And I think that if we could do something similar in Australia, that would be great. I think if we could sit down with the opposing parties and come together and say, look, what do we want to be like in 2035 as a nation? What direction do we want to go in? And figure that out, and then regardless of who's in power and who gets voted into government in Australia, at least we have this sort of rough guideline of the direction that we want to go in. And I think that's something that China does very well. I think in Australia, Australia does very well in terms of mental health. I think that is something that China could learn from Australia. I think mental health is a major problem, and I think it deserves more attention, not only in China but all around the world. And mental health has been something that I have advocated for, or awareness of mental health has been something that I've advocated for on programs that I've been on. And I think Australia does a very good job of reducing the stigmatization that is associated with mental health issues. So slowly, I think China is making improvements in this area, but I believe that there are, more improvements that could be made. And so that's two areas where Australia could learn from China and China could learn from Australia.
So I just want to say to my audience, like, I mostly want to ask, Hazza questions here and kind of let him answer. And I want to play devil's advocate once in a while, but I kind of don't want to like go all in on you, but I definitely think that there are some hard questions that people in chat are asking. So to say whether I agree or disagree is not the point as much as just allowing, my audience to see kind of someone from the other spectrum, to see their their viewpoint. Peter says, as you can see, Peter's comment, I think that's something that, like, one thing that a lot of people, and I'll say Chinese people, don't understand about America is they say, oh, Americans are so divided. They hate each other so much that they disagree so much. And I feel like this in America, the reason that we disagree with each other so much is because, we want to feel like we have choice. We want to feel like we have a say in the matter. And, whether or not let's just say, like, you're a liberal person, or you're more liberal or more left leaning, you want to live in California, you can live in California. If you're more conservative, you can live, in Texas or whatever, right? If you really love China, you can live in San Francisco. You know what I mean? And do you think that China, a lot of times I think they say, well, China is so united. And a lot of times I think China's too united. I think people a lot of times are kind of the same. I think a lot of people, they have the same hobbies. And that's the reason that people like Serpent Today say, well, Chinese people don't have hobbies, is because many times Chinese people are all kind of the same. They all have the same opinions on a lot of things. Whereas if maybe having a different opinion is not necessarily such a bad thing. I think if you took a bunch of Americans and you talk to them about their difference of opinion, I think you would find that they have difference of opinion, but I think all of them are American. I think you would find very quickly that, as an example, like 9/11, when something like that happened, all Americans came together, because even difference of opinion was unimportant as soon as America itself was under attack.
I remember watching an American Airlines advertisement right after 9/11, and I think that is one of the only commercials that I can really remember, even 20 odd years later. That was just so touching, that American Airlines commercial. I think you can find it on YouTube. And it was just, it was so uniting. And it sent a very, very good message. My response to Peter would be that, yes, I agree, that Australia does respect people's rights to have a difference of opinion and still remain friends, but only to a certain extent, because obviously I have a different opinion to many Australians, and I've lost friendships over the fact that I'm here in China. So personally, as an Australian, I wouldn't agree with your comment 100%.
Okay, let me move on to so this one. Okay, so this mentions a political person, of course, Xi. What is your opinion on, well, what is your opinion? Because I'll just give my opinion. I think anytime that a president or someone of power gives himself unlimited power, or at least puts themselves in power for an unlimited amount of time, I think in the Western world, the obvious opinion would be that is kind of overstepping your power, your ability. And I think that that's something that, like, especially for Americans, we've seen, like, with Russia happen, where Putin kind of put himself into power multiple times through kind of hopping the system and things like that. What do you think about the political situation of China and Xi Jinping essentially putting himself in power for an unlimited amount of time? Do you care, not care? Is it just something that doesn't matter to you, or what is your opinion?
I don't think you're going to like my answer. Firstly, it doesn't matter to me, and that is because I'm an Australian citizen. I'm a guest in China. I'm here on a work visa. So China's internal politics, really, I don't think I have a right to comment on China's political landscape. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. you know, as a guest here in this country.
What do you think about Australia? Will say, whatever, prime minister, president. What if they put themselves in power for an unlimited amount of time? Do you think that would be a good thing, a bad thing, or how would you see it?
I don't think that would be a good thing for Australia based on our system.
Mm-hmm. So your idea is that for your system in Australia, of course, you feel like it's not a good idea, but basically the system in China is different, so you don't want to you don't want to comment on that.
Well, I don't want to comment on it because I'm a journalist, and I think after living in China for so long, I think that Chinese people really, they only speak about the things that they really know. I think that in the West, one problem is that everybody seems to need to have an opinion on everything. And so that really muddies the water. So sometimes someone who actually does know what they're talking about and is knowledgeable on the subject, their voice is kind of diluted by all of these other opinions from people that don't know what they're speaking about. So I'm, once again, I'll reiterate, I'm a local Guangdong reporter here in Guangdong, and I cover Guangdong stories as well as international stories. I'm not a political reporter, so probably I'm not the best person to ask this question to.
And I guess I'll let Mr. MB ask you the next question, as you can see on screen.
I have a question for you. What's the best part about living in China, and why is it the women? Prime, do you understand the question?
I agree. I agree with MB 1,000%. I agree.
Do you understand the question? I don't understand the question, because he asked me what's the best part about living in China and why is it the women? So
I think he's implying something there.
Statement?
Yeah, right. So in your opinion, do you think Chinese people can tell the president to get off their lawn? Although not many Chinese people have their own lawn. I mean, that's
Chinese people don't have lawns.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think if President Xi were to turn up at anybody's house in China, they would welcome him with open arms. They would be happy for him to stay as long as he wanted.
Have you met him before?
They wouldn't actually, obviously in Australia, I've seen that story, that video actually of Scott Morrison holding a press conference on somebody's lawn, and the house owner coming out and telling him basically to bugger off and get off the lawn. And I showed it to some of my Chinese colleagues, and they said to me, you should be proud as an Australian that is, the way that your country works. And honestly, I am proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that, for example, Kevin Rudd, he was our previous prime minister, not our previous prime minister, but a prime minister in the past, and a former prime minister of Australia. And I met him in Brisbane and went up and shook his hand and said hello. And I think that's a great thing about Australia, is that, our politicians and government leaders, when they are out in public, they are very approachable. I would agree with Phil and Liang Beihai about the fact that as an Australian, that is something that we can do. And that's a positive thing about Australia.
Have you ever met Xi Jinping or shook his hand or anything like that?
No.
Do you want to? And if you do, will you tell him about my YouTube channel?
Sorry?
if you do meet him, will you tell him about my YouTube channel?
If I do meet him, I think I would definitely be, you know, anybody who meets Xi Jinping, the first thing they do is post a photo on their WeChat moments. So you have my WeChat. So if I ever did meet President Xi Jinping, you would know about it. But I'm not the kind of person who has aspirations to meet people. I don't know why certain people. Okay, apart from Jessica Malboy, I don't know if you know who Jessica Malboy is. She's my favorite Australian singer.
Yeah. Hey, can you sing a little bit for us? You're a for those people that don't know, you kind of got popular first by singing. So can you sing a little bit for us here?
You know, anytime I, do an interview about my singing and somebody asks me to do a rendition, I say no, because I feel like most singers hate that question.
Yes, of course.
Because singing is something you have to prepare for. It has to be the right conditions. It has to be the right microphone. I'm here using my iMac with my inbuilt microphone, so obviously my voice is going to sound terrible. So
Okay,
sorry,
maybe
I'm going to have to say no to that request.
okay. So maybe I'm going to invite some other people back into the stream, and I've already been streaming for an hour and a half. Probably going to do it 30 more minutes, maybe, and that's going to be it. Because I've been streaming for like 3 hours now. So
Wow,
I'm gonna
done well.
Yeah, like I streamed for an hour and a half before this, and I've been streaming another hour and a half. So I'm gonna invite some other people on here, and maybe if they want to ask Hazza some questions or change the subject, that's okay. Whatever. If of course, just be respectful, be normal.
Can I say something to your audience?
Sure,
mate. I'd just like to take this opportunity to say that if there are people out there that dislike me because of the work that I do or because of the country that I live in, I apologize if I've caused you any offense or if that makes you feel uncomfortable. But I would really like it if you could give me a chance to, let you get to know who I am as a person and understand, who I am. And I think hopefully most of those people will realize that I'm not such a terrible guy, I guess, hopefully.
Before I bring other people in, I will say this. Politically, I disagree with Hazza. I think there's a lot of things that he doesn't comment on because he knows he can't comment on. And I think he doesn't want to risk that opportunity that he has in China of being a journalist and his way of life. And that is my opinion. But that doesn't mean that I wouldn't conversate with person or give them a chance to say what they want, because I think for a long time within the community here, there's been this thing where people didn't want other people on their show. And a lot of people said, hey, have you heard of Hazza, this guy? And I would say, well, yeah, I talk to him all the time. And they would say, well, as you know, well, he's a complete shill, and I would say, well, is he a shill or does he just have a different opinion? And, I want to leave that up to other people to decide, to the audience to decide. And in my opinion, I want to be fair and to give everyone an opportunity to explain themselves, which is why I have you on here now.
I'll be upfront about my my agenda. I'll be upfront about my agenda. My agenda is to, as an Australian, do everything that I can to try and use the platforms that I have to improve the relationship between China and Australia, because personally, I feel like that is extremely important for the future of my country. Obviously, Prime, you're American. America is in a completely different situation to Australia. But personally, for me, I feel that um, a meaningful relationship with China and the chance to cooperate economically with China and work with China is extremely important to our future as a nation. And I feel that in my role as a television host and presenter here in Guangdong, I don't just host English programming. I also participate in Chinese programs as well. And especially when tensions are so high between Australia and China, I think it's a great thing that, there's a friendly face on Chinese TV from Australia, and I talk about Australia, I promote Australia. So I guess maybe you can make a shill video about me being a shill for Australia in China.
Well, that would be easy. That would be so easy. It would be good too. But no, okay. So I'm going to let other people into the call here now, and I'm just going to ask, of course, be respectful. Try not to curse and things like that, and don't.
Thank you, NB, for that comment. I appreciate it.
If of course you want to ask questions of people without yelling and things like that, of course. I'm going to start by bringing Mr. Karma. If you're ready to come in, I'm going to bring you in here. And I got to get SpongeBob in because I told him like an hour ago that I would bring him in. I never did, so I feel kind of bad about that. SpongeBob doesn't have a webcam, so I'm a little scared there. But we're going to bring in Karma here. And I'll
hello.
Take this comment. Hey, Mr.
Can
Karma.
you guys hear me?
Yeah, good.
Cool. Awesome. I'd like to just start off by saying that I think it's important to remember everyone's positions. As just human beings, we all live under different governments, and whether we like it or not, we have certain restrictions placed upon us by those governments. It's just a fact of life, unfortunately, for the moment. And so people that are criticizing Hazza, I understand, I don't believe he can say everything he'd want to say. It's just kind of crazy to do such a thing in his position, especially when you're in a public position that talks to the public. He has to be very, very careful about the things he says because it'll come back to him. If he says anything crazy, you best believe the guys that run the government over there can easily find it and show it to him on the camera and say, "Hey, Hazza, you remember you said this?" And so you guys think about the Gestapo. You guys got to be very, very conscious of what you say, especially when you live under totalitarian governments. Just keep that in mind. So just be a little bit compassionate. But I also remember, Prime, you said something about the personalities in China and how they're kind of all similar. And I think we kind of forget that the Chinese people have had a history of being pretty much psychologically, spiritually destroyed by the government. They've had their traditions, their culture, their everything taken away from them. And they've been shown that there's nothing they can do about it besides submit. And so that's been put onto them for a long period of time. So you as a foreigner, you go over there and you have all these ideals, you come up from a different background. You don't realize that they've had essentially just oppression upon oppression put on them, and there's no one to save them. They can't fight back and then run away like you could if you were in China. You could say something, mouth off, and then get on the plane and run away. They can't go anywhere. And even if they do, their family's still there as well. And this government, the Chinese government, is more than willing to threaten their entire family for the crimes of one person. It doesn't matter. It's just you got to understand that the people, they're not thinking about fighting against the government. They're thinking about survival. They're thinking about, can I pray to my God or can I be alive? You have to choose, because if you choose one or the other, it's the government's going to know. And also about the government, it seems in China, it seems that the government tends to does not like it when anyone, especially celebrities or people in high positions, goes against its power structure. So whether that be talking back like a Jack Ma, if Jack Ma were to say I don't think this is right, that's crazy, that's almost treasonous level of disrespect that Jack Ma would show. Simply because in China, it's state atheists. They want everyone to believe that the government is their God. And so if they're going to instill that the government is the people's God, anytime a person goes against what the government says, irregardless if the government is just or not, they're going against the God, and that is wrong. You can't do that. So that's why you see sometimes like if there's like forced home removals, even though the owner has rights to be there and the person tries to fight them, they can't. And even the government tells them, don't fight it. You cannot win. And you don't get anything if you do win. And you're probably going to be worse off if you do fight. They fight anyway. What happens? What ends up happening is that they may get a little bit of money, but guess what? For the rest of their lives, their children's lives, they will be blacklisted. They will get nothing. They will be like lepers in the system. So oftentimes, the logical conclusion is just to submit. Don't cry. Don't fight back. Just be silent. And but that is tyranny. The people in China are living under true tyranny right now. And it's like living in Nazi Germany and being a normal German or a foreigner there and understanding that, hey, the Jews they're being sent to the camps right now. They're going there. I know that I'm not involved, but it's happening. I can still go to the store, but I know it's happening. The people in China know it's happening. It's just that if they say anything about it, they're going to the camp too. It's a really bad situation. That's all I wanted to say.
Awesome. And Karma, can you say like where are you from? Have you been to China before and things like that?
I'm from the United States, New York. I have been to China before. In elementary school, high school, I actually learned Mandarin Chinese, and because of that, I was able to get a free trip to China. I visited Beijing. I visited Henan province. I got to climb the Great Wall. And it's crazy enough because it blows my mind how much I learned about China in the last 3 or 4 years. The program that took me to China was the Heban Institute, like the what's going on in the universities right now with the Confucius Institute. Yes, I was actually taken to China thanks to the Confucius Institute, but at the time I had no idea what China was, and so I actually have personally experienced the propaganda that was shown to me, and I ended up going to China having a very, very positive and image of China. The people were very open to me as a Black person. The government officials looked really friendly. Everyone, it was like a movie essentially that I was in when they took me there. And so the propaganda was very, very good. But I mean, I was always interested in China to begin with. I did also study international relations in college. I have a BA in that with the double minor in East Asian Studies and Japanese. So I also know Japanese language. I study abroad in Japan as well.
Awesome, dude. Good. Just I'll probably send you a comment if you want to come on streams again or something. That's awesome because we're always looking for people to come on, again and again and again and talk. So because it's hard to get people to come on sometimes. So it's cool that you come on here. And a lot of people are kind of afraid to come on too and to share their comments and things. So it's appreciated. I'm gonna invite another person on, and let's see.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm gonna add SpongeBob here. We're gonna give SpongeBob a chance and see how it goes. I'm still a little scared.
All right, I'm gonna peace out.
Share our thoughts.
Yeah, sure, of course. You can. I'll let you respond before I invite SpongeBob on then. So the floor is yours, Mr. Hazza. Even though he just went away. Sorry.
SpongeBob. SpongeBob.
Do you want me to bring Do you want me to bring Karma back real fast, or if he'll come back?
I mean,
If he wants
I love
to come back.
SpongeBob growing up. I have no idea who SpongeBob is online though.
I was gonna say, if you want to respond, talk to Karma, then it seems like he's in the lobby, so he'll come back. I think if you want. Here, I'll add him in.
So I actually just have one question regarding the trip that you took to Beijing, and how you referred to people being friendly and the positive image that you were presented with. You used the word propaganda. So I found that to be interesting because I'm not sure how that can be justified as propaganda if you're on a trip, because I've been on trips to places as well. I've traveled to other countries as a reporter, as a journalist, and we've been taken care of by the local governments or local agents, tourist agencies or whatever. And I personally don't think of that as being propaganda. I just think of that as people doing their jobs and trying to portray, the places that they live and work in, and that they're trying to promote in the best light possible. So sometimes I think the word propaganda is, I think it's used a little bit too loosely. Sometimes. So that would be my question to you. Like, why was the positive experience that you had in Beijing? Why do you now think of that as being propaganda?
Okay, so first, just to clarify, I went to China, probably maybe it's going on 10 years ago. So my memory of it is a little bit hazy. I have lots of video. I have lots of like documentation of it. Actually, I recorded all of it at the time. But essentially, first, like, it was very much like I was a group of maybe 10 students from my district in a group of maybe 40 from like the state, in a bigger group of maybe 100 or so from the entire country, United States. But all through the way, so we went from different places in China, but through the entire way, we always had like a guide and like one or two government officials that were always there. And so this is me looking back, because at the time this would not stand out to me at all. But all through the way that we were in China and allowed to move about China, we were always kind of guided along a path that was, what I would looking back, would be pre-approved. The things that we experienced, they were very nice. The people that we were allowed to speak with were very nice. The students that engaged with us were very nice. No doubt about that. When I was walking on the Great Wall of China, I'm sure the people there weren't probably paid to interact with us. They all loved me. So, and especially that's meant a lot for me as a Black person. Is often lots of stereotypes about being Black in China, especially things may have changed now, especially when I've seen what's happened with the African Americans, well, Africans in general, with the COVID-19 pandemic. But my experience is really good. So I understand that, but I also understand that experience in itself might not be the totality of the reality of China. So for example, we were
able. Sorry to interrupt, but why do you have that? I mean, this is what I would like to sort of figure out. Like, why did you have that in the back of your mind throughout that trip?
I didn't have that in the back of my mind during the trip at all. I just thought that China was amazing. I thought that it was like a wonderland. Everyone's like, it's just great. Like, I mean, like, for example, they take us to a tour to the Shaolin Temple, and we get to take pictures with the Shaolin monks. Like, but there's like the Shaolin Temple is full of people and tourists. And I'm just thinking, wow, it's a great thing that I get to speak with a Shaolin monk. But now doing research and watching documentaries about what's going on with the Shaolin Temple and the process of like Buddhism and how that's kind of being taken back from the people, and now all they can do is kind of just be a glorified photo op for us. Now I see that, and so I can look back at my experience and say, wow, was that guy that I saw there, was he just kind of stuck to being a photo op for like the government? That's all he can do. And I was having my ticket, I was having my go at the amusement park. I can look back now and think about that. That's why. But at the time that I was going on, I was thinking about propaganda. I was like 16, 15. I was just thinking that China is awesome. I'm so lucky to be able to go to China, especially they paid for my entire trip. It was amazing, But I mean, but even going back to that though, I have to question about the Chinese that I learned. I learned Mandarin Chinese. I didn't learn Cantonese. I learned Mandarin. I learned simplified Chinese characters. I never learned like the traditional Chinese characters. So I know now that every teacher that was allowed to teach Chinese was, overlooked by a government official. So they have to be mandated for what they can teach us, what they can say, what can't say. History dictated by the government, not at how it has happened. So I absorbed the language through a very focal tunnel envelope that they give me. And I'm grateful that I was able to have that experience at all, but I'm conscious that what I've experienced is very much a manufactured thing.
Okay. So, I mean, in response to that, because over the last couple of years, I've done a lot of different programs. So, obviously, my main role is presenting the news, but I've also done travel documentaries, You know, I've been to, well, I mean, I can't even remember how many villages I've been to in Guangdong over the last 2 years, but I have been to many temples, and they aren't tourist attractions. Like the temples that I went to for the filming, they were just temples that are Buddhist temples that are just functioning Buddhist temples, and you know, people can go there and can visit them, but they're not tourist attractions, or they perhaps at the time they weren't well known, so they weren't tourist attractions, but they were also in fairly remote areas. And I actually spent 2 days in one of the temples in a mountain, living with the monks in the temples, and I mean, from what I could see, it was totally authentic. Like it wasn't staged. It wasn't, and because I was the only foreigner in the entire team, you know, so obviously the producer, the camera operators, the sound operators, everybody's Chinese. We're all speaking in Chinese, so it's not as though, like, you know, I'm the only foreigner, but they you can't, you know, expect that the whole thing is this you know, stage thing just for me. You know,
Well,
that's just
they have their way, and then they have their way they deal with the foreigners, and so they just default to the way they deal with you when you're around, and then when you're not around, they go back to the way that they are. They're under tyranny, and just because maybe you can't see the tyranny or you feel it when in their presence doesn't mean it's not there. I mean, you can look at their government; it's there. It's still putting policies through. It's telling you can't believe in God. So, I mean, I'm certainly not allowing Buddhism. So, whatever Buddhism you saw is probably sanctioned by the government, which means that the true Buddhism is it's not being allowed. I mean, I don't know for certain that temple could be still doing the true teachings. I doubt it, but everything is kind of through a lens that it has to be acceptable from the government, and then if it's acceptable for the government, it's allowed. I think that's the tyranny. And just because you see something in front of you doesn't mean that it's okay and like de facto all right. I think you have to understand that there's an invisible force over enveloping the entire country that's affecting the way that people respond and react to every situation. In the back of their heads, they're constantly thinking about this all the time.
Okay, so we have Wu Jiao here, and I'm going to let him kind of explain who he is, where he's from, and what he wants to talk about, and if he wants to talk to somebody directly or whatever that may be. So you have the floor, Mr. Wu Jiao.
Oh no, I got. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I didn't really have anything specific to talk about. It just you said anyone could join the
Yeah.
What do you call it? A blog or a vlog?
I don't know what it is. You know, it's just I felt like we always have the same people on, and I wanted to get some people that watch and comment. I feel like they don't ever get involved as much as they should be, so we're just bringing in random people. You know, it doesn't matter. So
That's cool. That's cool.
yeah. So I appreciate you coming.
It's actually kind of cool to be on in a whatever this is video blog with Hazza.
Yeah, sure. Are you a big Hazza? Are you a Hazza fan? Do you have?
sorry, I was just distracted by WeChat for a moment.
I think you have a fan, Hazza. I think you need to take over maybe.
Oh, finally, somebody who's who doesn't hate me.
I don't know if people hate you. You know,
I was thinking I wouldn't be able to get on, but he allowed me to get on. Actually, I'm not sure your name, Prime in China.
Oh, my name's Corey. Yeah, it's just difficult because, you know, like 4Cs and Hazza and some of the other people, I know them, so I kind of want to give them priority because I know it's going to be good. As you can imagine, like it's a little strange to let people I don't know on, but it's definitely interesting at the same time. So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. No, Hazza, that's not your name, right?
My name's Harry, but since I was young, everyone just called me Hazza.
Harry.
It's kind of an Australian thing.
Oh, that's cool. I've only found your videos maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and probably watched every one you put out since.
Thank you for watching.
you're certainly not the most opinionated.
He's
You know,
not the most opinionated.
No, not only on this video chat here, but also on his own videos. He's very nice to both sides at all times. Yeah,
he is.
So
he
the
has
people
to
who
be.
are
Thank
the
you.
people who are in the group, people who are in this group, and then they criticize him for that, and he's trying to pussyfoot around. He's not. That's actually his personality, in my opinion.
Oh,
I had a
appreciate that.
theory or maybe like a little idea. I'm sorry, I'm not totally privy to Australian Chinese politics. I know some things, but I wouldn't know as much as like an Australian. So forgive me if I'm wrong here, but I'm gonna probably say something inflammatory. Just brace yourself. I as an American, I kind of feel iffy with my government cooperating with the Chinese government as is, but it looks like, from my perspective, that Australia is even more like embedded with the Chinese government to the extent that it's almost got control of Australia to the point where like they can send spies, assassins in Australia, like there's and kill people in mainland Australia, or there's also CCP members just walking around monitoring other Chinese people. I think that's crazy, and I think that's absolutely terrifying. And for it to be at that level.
Sorry, I would have to. I apologize, but I would have to disagree with you on that. I think that's false. I think that as a proud Australian, I have confidence in our systems and the way it. I just think that's false. I don't know what you are basing that assumption on, but I disagree with you.
Basically, I've seen like students from Hong Kong, maybe at universities, try to protest maybe the things they see in China or in their mainland, and there's actually like minders there from the government that report on the protesters back to mainland China or Hong Kong. So the students are still being watched even when they're in Australia. I think that for the government to not find those minders and immediately remove them, that's terrifying. And I just wanted to add that for Hazzy's sake, like even if Hazzy said something against the government in China, if he were to go back to Australia, in my opinion, he's still kind of in danger from the government as well. So I don't think people might see that dynamic, but he might not have a place to ever go to, in my opinion.
No, that's false as well. That's false as well. I wouldn't like to. I don't like to get into too many details, but I've spoken to the right people. And the Australian government respects my right as an Australian to choose where I work and also to say what I like. And it doesn't matter where I am in the world, I'm still an Australian. And from Australia's perspective, I'm welcome back to Australia anytime. And I think that, honestly, Karma, I think perhaps you haven't seen some of the things that I have done here in China to try to do my best, on the Chinese side.
Oh, I am not a watcher, so I gave you that. I don't know your content. I have no idea.
Exactly. So I mean, that's why I always say that making assumptions is dangerous, because once somebody makes an assumption and says something that they actually are not informed about, this is a live stream, but I mean, it could be recorded, it could be quoted. People could use what you've just said for any purpose or, with any agenda. So that is why I tend to, think carefully before I speak, not just about China related issues, but about any issue, because I feel that, yes, the freedom to be able to say whatever you want to say is important, but technically Australia doesn't have a freedom of speech law. But I feel that freedom of speech and freedom of expression are two different things. And sometimes people say things based on their beliefs that can affect other people and have real world consequences for them. And I think that a lot of people these days just don't take the time to consider that before they speak.
What's Forsy's doing here? What's he about?
Corey? Okay. Oh, Corey, your microphone is off.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Forsees. I guess introduce yourself and I guess explain what you wanted to talk about or what you wanted to comment on or whatever that may be.
Thank you for letting me inside here, guys. Hazza, Karma, and Wu Zhao. My name is James. I went to university in China way back in the day when China first opened. I'm fluent in several Chinese languages, read and write and everything. And I'm located here in Taipei, Taiwan. And I also I'm a reporter. I have a news background, mainly from regular, street news to war zone. So I've been in the rough. And, I have friends and classmates, former classmates in China who are still in China, who I communicate with through coded messaging and stuff like this. But I'm glad, Hazza's a nice guy. I've spoke to him previously, and he's a person that I can communicate with. But, there are things that, I can say rebuttal from all sides. I do have friends also in Australia, and I'm still in contact with them and also people in the media. So I come, how would you say, well endowed with the background information to talk about things I'm going to talk about, or maybe you guys will continue to talk about, and I will bring receipts to show and prove what I'm talking about. Now, Hazza mentioned something about freedom of expression and freedom of speech actually being two things that almost sounds diametrically opposed, which they are not. To have the freedom to speak, right, gives you the right to feel protected when you say almost anything. And the expression is different. Some people have freedom to speak, but not freedom to express. I can see that. But are they really two different things? We have to talk about that. Now, Karma mentioned something about him being in China and being in environments where people are just putting on a show. And Hazza mentioned that he was in some remote places in Guangdong, and he felt that the people there were very authentic and true. Well, actually, this is not the case. And this is not only in a situation, I say, in the commercial settings. Now, Hazza is in a very spectacular situation right now because he's a person that's in front of the camera, and he is, how would you say, he's supposed to hold certain responsibilities for the people who he represents. Now, that's something that Hazza understands, and he said he spoke to the people in the know, the right people, so he doesn't feel endangered. So I assume that he is free to speak here. Am I right, Hazza?
Sorry, you're cutting out a little bit. What could you please repeat the question?
Am I cutting out any place else? People, I'm here on a 100 gigabit line here.
I hear you just fine.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I don't know, should I put my mask on or whatever? Because here in Taiwan, we kicked COVID on the butt. But I really thank the government here, people here work together. Now, what I'm trying to say is basically you as a person representing, because you are a foreigner, you're not a Chinese citizen, you in many ways are responsible for projecting a certain image of the people you are working for in China. All reporters are responsible to represent their channel. This is something to remember. And when you go to a village, they are putting on a, how would you say, a projection of the people of their region for you to show to people overseas. And this is what something I know you have this in the back of your mind. Am I right, Hazza?
No. That program was not for people overseas.
Okay, but you are, for example, even if it's not for people overseas, in the eyes of the local audience, you represent an overseas viewpoint. Maybe not officially in the lettering of the programming, but in the psychological minds of the people. Would you deny or what to that? Would you say that is possible or nearly possible or totally impossible?
I would say that as a television presenter, you are always going to be, part of your job is always representing the company that you work for well, which is in reference to one of the comments you made in that question. I think that's common practice all around the world. In regards to presenting the villages, you know, I don't understand what you are trying to get at, like, because I feel like a lot of the things that people accuse me or accuse my colleagues of doing are things that happen commonly all around the world. And you know, I mean, I don't try to misinform people. I'm not an investigative journalist, you know, but when I did that program, I went to the villages. We had free reign in the villages to go around and film what we wanted to film. We spoke to the local villagers. We interviewed local villagers. I conducted all of the interviews in Chinese, and there were no scripts. There were no, you know. So, I mean,
I respect
sometimes
your professionalism.
when people make these assumptions and then push them onto you, and you constantly have to deny and constantly have to try and I don't know.
No. I don't question your professionalism. I did see 2 programs, I think, of yours. No, I do not question your professionalism. No way, not at all. You handle yourself professionally in the position you are put in. That's one thing that people here, people watching, you need to know. Okay, now, okay. So what I'm saying is that you're not an investigative reporter. They're more as a travel thing. More, that's what it sounds like, right? So they gave you a certain type of karma, but you have to think in the back of your mind. Well, the things that you seeing, would you think it's just a total representative of how the people really live their life, or how they truly chose to live their life? You can say yes on that simply because you were not in an investigative mode. That is, understand. So I just want to let you know, I'm not questioning your professionalism. No way. I just don't want to get off the wrong foot. Okay.
Well, obviously, as a foreigner in China, I was in semi-investigative mode because I was interested to learn how people in rural areas of China are living their lives. So, yes, and a lot of things take place off camera because, you know, each time I visited a village, I would spend 3 to 4 days in the village, and it would be condensed into a 40-minute program. So, you know, 4 days is a long time to spend in a village, getting to know people, understanding how things work. And these are small villages that we're talking about. So, I mean, I don't feel that I was inauthentic at all in any of my representations about the villages. And in fact, the program was a show which was actually a competition between villages in Guangdong, and so we had 2 separate segments. So we had the segment where I would go to the village and I would you know, explore the village. I would talk to the local people. I would talk to the local officials. I would talk to the local villagers. And then we would go back into the studio and 4 villages would compete amongst each other. And there would be a panel of judges who would criticize each village for their failings and for the aspects that they had not done well enough. And each village was given a score across a range of 10 categories, some of which included like waste management, sanitary improvements, you know, 10 categories. So, I mean, there was a lot of that program was, you know, criticism.
Okay, so this is the next question, though.
They had not improved well enough.
And this is the key point, because you know, how much investigative reporting have you done, and how much of the investigative reporting you're allowed to do on your job? Because you obviously was in this situation more in presentation mode to show how much certain areas are competing with each other, development, which is nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that in this particular show, because you are not assigned to do otherwise. How much investigative reporting are you allowed there, and what type of topics are you able to go into, and those that you are not? Are you aware of that? Are you limited by that? Or you can just, the Wild West, you can go wherever you want. How much investigative reporting can you do?
So at my station, which is called GRT, I work with a number of different departments. So we have a radio news department, we have a television news department, we also have other different channels such as entertainment channels, and I will go to producers and I will submit my ideas of what I want to do. And one of the things that I really wanted to do before the pandemic hit was to go into jails here or prisons here in Guangdong and, you know, investigate what was going on inside the prisons and speak to some of the foreign inmates in the prisons. And that was an idea that I put forward, and it was accepted. And it was going to go ahead, but then COVID-19 hit, and so that's been put on hold. But that is a project that I really want to, you know, when the time is right, I really want to get back on and get that project up and running, because
Would
I
you
think
want to investigate? Would you want to interview the two Michaels?
I'm in Guangdong.
Yeah, but would you apply to even, or just want to stay in Guangdong? Would you apply to see if you can talk to the two Michaels? I mean, is that a big leap?
I'm in Guangdong, so I mean, I think perhaps maybe you should take some time to, you know, learn a little bit about how media works in China. So Guangdong Television is responsible for reporting on Guangdong stories and Guangdong issues, and CCTV is responsible for reporting on national issues, so they can report basically on anything across the country. And wherever those two individuals that you mentioned are located, they have a provincial television station. They also have a municipal television station, and those television stations will be responsible for those stories.
So you tell them, okay, so then you're saying, okay, because what you're restricted by, you know, the assignment on your station, you basically would not be allowed or wouldn't be considered. Is that what you're saying?
Well, if I put this story forward, it would be about prisons in Guangdong. So for me to travel to another province to interview prisoners in a prison in another province, that would just be impractical. I mean, in terms of budgeting, in terms of production costs, I mean, so see, this is why I feel like sometimes some of the questions aimed at me are a little bit, they come from a place of being not having enough information about how the media system works here in China, because
I got it. I got you. I can understand that. I can understand what you're saying, and I understand the parameters you placed there. When you spoke to the foreign inmates of a particular prison location, did you feel that they were speaking to you unrestrictedly, and why?
Well, that is something that I will have to judge when it happens, because as I mentioned, it was something that was in the works before COVID-19 hit. But
I got it.
Obviously, since we are now in the middle of a pandemic, you know, visiting a prison is not something that is advisable at the moment, just for safety reasons.
That can be done remote, though.
Sorry?
It can be done remotely, right?
Well, I would prefer to do it in person.
Right.
So, you know, there are things that, you know, we're in a pandemic at the moment. So the thing is like everybody is so focused on politics, and everyone is so focused on why certain things are right or wrong, or, you know, obviously, from your perspective, being located where you are, I think that possibly a lot of things that happen on this side of the strait you would disagree with. But I think right now we're in the middle of a pandemic, and
Okay.
a lot of people are still so focused on the politics. And I was just open and honest about the fact that I put forward a story and it was accepted. And I feel like, you know, somehow people's minds are programmed to ignore positive things when it comes to China. So that is something that I just let you know, that I put forward a proposal about a story that would be considered very sensitive, and it was approved. And, you know, it was in the works, but then COVID-19 happened. So that, I think that should be the focus of what I just told you, rather than trying to, you know, find faults or find
politicize it, in other words. That's what. No, I get it. Oh, because you mentioned something about because I'm located in Taiwan. Well, I think everybody's at fault. Me, my own nation. I think everybody has a problem, and I'm more related to people. That's why I call myself 4Cs, one family, because we all should be that, regardless of the woman, the 肤色, right? I wish we can actually host a part of this in Mandarin, but the thing is, when it's about people's expression of their rights. Every place has good and wonderful things. We can go around and talk about the wonderful beef noodles here and the wonderful edibles in China, which is good, which is just fun. But as a reporter, you don't want to always be on the, how would you say, or they say softballing it sometimes. And you're not an investigative reporter. I do respect that. And once again, let me repeat, I respect your professionalism and the way you handle yourself on camera. And yes, I do understand that you really rather talk about, present the good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff we have. And, you know, it's selective amnesia when we sometimes see things that maybe we should be talking about and refuse, but that's our own personal choice. So let me be clear about that. And
selective amnesia, I know you've mentioned that a number of times in our conversations, and I slightly find that to be a little bit offensive. I would like to reiterate that I'm a guest in this country. I don't know your status in Taiwan, but for me, I'm a guest in this country. I'm here on a working visa, and for me, what is important is to follow the laws and regulations of the People's Republic of China, which is also what Australia expects of immigrants in Australia before they receive citizenship. So I think that we shouldn't have double standards, and I am trying to use my platform in the best way possible that I can to try to improve the situation between our two countries. Both of you are American citizens, I imagine. So the situation between your country and China is completely different to the situation between my country and China. But I would just like to reiterate that I am a guest in this country, and I'm not here to impose my beliefs or my standards on other people. And what is normal in my country may not be normal in China. And I have come to the point where I accept that. And I don't think that there is a problem with that, because China is a legitimate country. It is a sovereign country. I'm here as a guest on a work visa, and I follow the laws and the regulations of this country.
100% clear, 100% clear and respected from me. Okay, but you mentioned double standard again, referring to what particular point?
Well, I mean, I don't know about the United States of America, but in Australia, it's a very popular thing to talk about how immigrants don't respect our culture, don't follow our norms, you know, don't follow the laws of Australia. And I don't want to be that person in China.
Gotcha.
I am following what is expected of foreigners and immigrants in Australia as an expat in China, which is to follow the laws and the regulations of this country and to go about my work with dignity and with professionalism. And if people have a problem with that, then that's fine. But, you know, I respect China's sovereignty as a country, and I will conduct myself in the same way that I would expect a foreigner or an immigrant in my country to conduct themselves, which is to respect the culture and norms of my country.
Right, I agree too, because no, you and I, we have no 没有冲突. We have no disagreements, or you don't want to 打压 each other's points. I agree with you. Even me as a guest, I'm a guest here too, and I'm in some ways a representative of where I've come from, or people who look like me. So yes, what you're saying is absolutely fair and like that. But I understand, I do have a little background of what's happening in your country. And also in my country, most of the immigrants in my country are actually great people. And most of the immigrants, and even the Chinese immigrants who are in Australia, are wonderful people. There was a report.
Of course, they are wonderful people. Yes.
I picked up a report from Sydney Naiba. His name is Edgar Liu. He's a former reporter, and he has a show called Sydney Naiba. And there was a report that 80% of the Chinese people in Australia reported of discrimination in China. Well, from his and other gathered information, that should be like 1.5%. And he's a pretty up and up person. So I do agree in this point. But let's go back up what you said about following the laws of your guests. I usually call it your host nation. We all should do that. That's true.
China is my host nation.
Right. So you and I have no problem on that, not at all. But I think what's causing the problems is with people, and I'm going to use the term again, selective amnesia. And maybe this doesn't pertain to you because of your assignment. But there are people, certain individuals, and in the audience right now, I see one or two of them, that would say something about what's happening on your side of the border, but not really having the ability or the will or the fortitude enough to investigate what they're talking about. So if you would like me to go deeper into that, I can, but I personally rather not at this time, but I can. Any comments here?
So I'm going to say we're going to end the stream in 5 minutes. I know 4Cs, you just got here. Kind of sorry about that, but we've already been going for quite a long time. And I want to say also, like, here's the thing for a lot of people in the chat to understand is that we all talk, and we realize that these questions, are hard, and perhaps it seems like, especially for Hazza here, he's kind of been like the punching bag now for an hour, and it is appreciative that you come on here, because perhaps it seems like it's a bit one-sided, but I think that's the reason that it's important that you come on. And it's also important that other people like Karma and everyone that's come on, because it's nice to have different opinions of people. And I think something this stream has done is shown is that some people fall from different spectrums. Some people believe things that others would just not even think is not even close to being true. And sometimes that's a narrative of others that they do believe is true. And, I think it's interesting to have someone that's, a journalist, and then someone that is perhaps critical of journalists in China, right? And things like that.
Well, hopefully the fact that, because, this morning I woke up, today's my day off. I haven't had a day off in about 2 weeks. I just woke up and you invited me on the stream, and I thought, you know what, I just better do it, because I think it's important to put the message out there that even though we may have different political positions or ideas, that we can still come together and we can still have civil conversations. And quite honestly, I'm prepared for the fact that I may receive some flack from certain people for being in a live stream with Prime, but just based on the content that he has produced in the past. But I hope that me coming on this stream today will show to people that I am open to different perspectives and to communicating with anybody. And I was late to the game with YouTube. I only started my channel late last year, but when I started my channel, I said from the get-go that I would never say no to speaking to anyone. And until this point now, I think I've, stayed true to that statement. Anyone who's reached out to me for a chat or for a live stream, I've participated. So hopefully some of the people out there who perhaps may have hated me about an hour and a half ago maybe hate me about 10% less now.
Hazza, you came out here and I really respect it, and I'm going to give claps out to you because you're great and I really appreciate it. You kept your word, and I'm going to look forward to talking to you again. This is not, I spoke to you once before this, and you were straight up with me, and I appreciate it. And I really thank you very much for getting me in here with you. Also, Prime, I really appreciate it. I wish I was a little bit prepared more because I have to go on the air in about an hour and a half myself. Hey, thanks a lot. Hey, Harry. Thanks a lot, man. I want to talk to you again, and we need to share more people to people stuff. Okay? Yeah, because we're all brothers from another mothers. Okay?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. We've all had experience living as expats, and I think there's a lot of, just everyday things that we could talk about and share interesting stories with each other. So I look forward to that, and thanks to you as well. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Awesome, guys. So again, thanks to everyone that has come. We're going to try and do this again next week and kind of just let anybody that wants to come on, as long as people don't talk over each other or anything like that. And I think everyone that we had on today was good. Nobody yelled at each other or talked over anyone. It was pretty good, so better than expected. So Hazza and 4Cs, if you guys want to come next week, we can try and do the same thing. Perhaps you can prepare some questions, some answers, and things like that too. Of course, there's never any real goal, but perhaps I will, create some topics, or we can all get together and create topics. And I hope what you said, Hazza, is not true. I hope that people don't get angry with you for coming on a stream with anyone else. Let's be honest. You're 30 years old. You can talk to whoever you want to talk to, right? So. Thanks again to everyone for coming and watching. So I'm going to boot everyone else out, and we're ending the broadcast. Thanks you people for watching. Check out everyone's channel.
Thank you.
Please, and Hazza, check out their channels. Thank you for watching.